Everyone, thank you for coming to my channel today. This is Daddy is from Billion. Of course, we're here with another video about something that's important and that's most recent. As in today, as in January, February, March, April 15th, 2023. What we see right now is talking about Tucker exposes the secret Pentagon war documents. Now, I don't know too much about this. I've been hearing circulation as in more of hearing as in seeing it just popping up on YouTube. So I thought we should react to it together. So before we get into this, of course, one thing I want you to know is after this video, make sure that you put one thing that you learned and one thing that you like because your opinion matters and our voice matters. And this is a place as a community that we can do that together. So from that, let's go ahead and add them on here, right here, and let's go ahead and we react together. And disclaimer as well, because I don't believe in paying YouTube to be able to get rid of commercials. If you see any commercials, no, they're going to be blurred out. Well, not blurred, but muted out. But we're going to be watching this together. And from that, you should get ready to get into it.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. For the past 14 months, you have heard two main things about the war in Ukraine. The first is that the war in Ukraine is a war of national sovereignty. It is not a proxy battle between superpowers. Russia invaded Ukraine. That was immoral. The United States supports Ukraine because the United States supports democracy. But the United States itself is not at war with Russia. This is Ukraine's war to fight. The second thing we have heard over and over again is that Ukraine is winning that war. Ukrainian troops are brave and noble. Russian troops are evil and incompetent. The Ukrainians are beating the Russians. In the end, their victory is inevitable. Now, you're very familiar with these points because you have heard them every day since last February. You've heard them repeated by every power center in the United States, the Pentagon, the White House, the leaders of both parties in Congress, CEOs, and celebrities. And most insistently of all, you've heard them from virtually every single outlet along the entire spectrum of our national news media. These are the two essential themes of the war in Ukraine, and both of them are lies. We know that they're lies because late last week, leaked intelligence about the war in Ukraine began to appear on social media. Briefing slides prepared by the US government began to show up, among other places, on Twitter. And the slides show that this is in fact not Ukraine's war. It's our war. The United States is a direct combatant in a war against Russia. As we speak, American soldiers are fighting Russian soldiers. So this is not a regional conflict in Eastern Europe. This is a hot war between the two primary nuclear superpowers on Earth. And yet this war has never been formally declared. It has not been authorized by Congress. And for that reason, this war is a violation of American law. It is a crime. The second thing we learned from these slides is that despite direct U.S. involvement, Ukraine is in fact losing the war. 7 Ukrainians are being killed for every Russian. Ukrainian air defenses have been utterly degraded. Ukraine is losing. The Biden administration is perfectly aware of this. They're panicked about it, but they have lied about this fact to the public. Just 2 weeks ago, for example, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin told the U.S. Senate that Russian military power is, quote, waning. In other words, Russia is losing the war. That was a lie. He knew it was when he said it, but he repeated it in congressional testimony.
Wow. I'll stop it right here. One commentary I do have to say about this right here is that unfortunately, this isn't an uncommon thing. What I mean by that is if the last 3 years haven't taught you anything about what's been going on here, at least in America, we can say worldwide, but here especially, if you're in America and you see the things that we went through and what people have lost and had to do just so they can make it, just to have livelihood, and just for them to see, to be promoted with fear and direction, telling them that this and that, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen, for it to all to turn out to be false. Or you have people such as Gates and, well, Fauci, what he been charged for basically going against humankind, basically. And it's not the only one. And it's so many different things that's going on. As in, when you know that you can dig yourself out financially or whatever by a certain pool to get you out of a situation, to know that you can afford to do certain things because you know you don't have to actually pay the real repercussion, then you know you have a problem. So this, even though this information is new to me, it's not necessarily new. So what I mean by that, as in, if for those who us who do watch the news, a lot of our news now, for at least my generation, is social media. So we do see a little bit of what they say, but at least a little bit less programming or propaganda to an extent. But definitely, they have been promoting, as in what he said, what Tucker just said, is on these media to make it look like Ukraine was winning, making it look like, oh, they are the perfect ones and all this sort. Based off your perspective, your views can change, but are they really your views if every single station that you're watching says the same thing, the same exact wave, the same tonality, and it repeats over and over and over again? I'm not sure what it's called. I'm pretty sure somebody in comment section below or whatever will elaborate more on it. But it's a phenomenon, or it's not a phenomenon, but it's basically a thing in which it's a movie that's called Focus with Will Smith and this woman in the movie. And basically, they had one scene where they had a same number that kept on popping up every single way that was pre-programming the person that they was targeting. So when it comes towards the time of them coming up with a number in a scenario that they created for that person, they're gonna think of that number and thinking that that is own, but they really been seeing that same number in everything that they do. For an example, if a person's walking around, they say he walking out the house, and when he go out the house, and you got cars on the street, he's got like 7 cars, and then you get inside the car, and it has, I don't know, 7 stars on the roof or something. It's definitely not a great example, but that's basically how this program is working. So when it comes towards lies and these different perceptions, it just really just lets you know, as in, there's a lot of different lies that's going on, and we haven't heard everything Tucker has to say yet. But if it's true, based off what he's saying, as in we have American troops over there who's fighting, and that's not being talked about, it's then it's basically like a secret Vietnam. But let's go ahead and let him continue saying what he's got to say.
That is a crime. But Lloyd Austin has not been arrested for committing that crime. Instead, the only man who has been taken into custody, or likely ever will be, is a 21-year-old Massachusetts Air National Guardsman who leaked the slides that showed that Lloyd Austin was lying. He revealed the crimes, therefore he's the criminal. That's how Washington works. Telling the truth is the only real sin.
And that's another thing right here. In the last 3 years, if anything really taught you anything, is that we know that our First Amendment, for those who even don't know there are amendments, the First Amendment is the freedom of speech. It's the freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly. Is but basically the whole thing is that our rights been attacked on freedom of speech, as in, for example, the last 3 years we then had something that's called misinformation, where you had things, platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, which Facebook owns Instagram, basically all social media sites, even here on YouTube, where information was being censored and called misinformation by those who seem to have the correct information. And my thing is, who are you to say what's misinformation? Because I mean, your misinformation is someone's truth, and your truth probably to someone's misinformation. But that's for the viewers, us as Americans, to be able to decide, because that is our right. So it's a saying that goes, what seems to be true is to be wrong. And to be wrong is to be seen as truth. And so And there's different ways that you can say that as well. But that's definitely what I see that's happening right now. And just based off of this in front of us, we're only 3 minutes into it. But it just makes you think a lot that towards the direction that we're going as a country, a country that has never been perfect, but at once upon a time was the pinnacle of all places on the planet. As in, we're at a time that we're the all-time low of patriotism, having God involved as in a base within our lives, and just being a whole as a nation, as in together. We're more divided than ever, as in we attack people based on different views. If you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you are a man or a woman, have men and women going against each other, confusing people when it comes to anything, as in what they identify as, and there's so many different things that's going on. And it makes you think about with all this distraction, what is the real big thing that's going on? We have something that's going on right now, as in today, where the US currency right now is quite literally at 97% down its original value from when it was introduced. Now, America was founded in 1776. So if this money's, I believe sometime after 1776 is when the currency was converted to a Federal Reserve currency. It wasn't originally the Federal Reserve, which is a separate entity from the United States, which is owned by the Rothschilds. But from that moment in time up to this point, we done dropped 97% of our whole currency. So it's going to be a matter of time before the US dollar is basically no more. And you see that, for example, that unfortunately, a few days ago, if I'm not wrong from this date, if today's the 15th, about a week ago or so, his name was Bob Lee, which was the founder of Cash App, was unfortunately, don't know why he was walking around 2 o'clock in the morning ish in Los Angeles in the morning, but he was unfortunately stabbed to death. And just to be able to see that, right after that happened, the government produced a Fed now digitalist currency. I said digitalist, digital currency. So it's a lot of different things that so happen to happen at certain times and conveniences. So what's up to us is be able to make a logical observation, or like what we say in school, an educated guess towards what's our next move and what to really believe and what to really trust. We're at a point in time that anything at any time can honestly happen. And because of that, it's very imperative and important that we make the right decisions for us and our own. Because if we don't look out for each other, who will?
Now, our news media exist and have constitutional protection precisely in order to push back against this grotesque standard. Their only job is to tell the truth. And yet tonight, the news media are celebrating the capture of the kid who told Americans what's actually happening in Ukraine. They are treating him like Osama bin Laden, maybe a little worse, actually, because unlike al-Qaeda, apparently this kid is a racist. Here's CNN.
The Washington Post, as you know, reviewed video of this suspect yelling racial and anti-Semitic slurs.
Is this a dangerous person? This air guardsman who's now been taken into custody had talked about being a gun enthusiast, had been at gun ranges. He's obviously a member of the military.
And he's the big guy in the scene. Somehow he has access to this kind of information, and that makes him even larger.
A person who thinks they know better than everyone else, they're smarter than everyone else in their view.
And that this is a 21-year-old man. He's described as a gun enthusiast. Feels like in some of these descriptions, somebody who's maybe hungry for power.
So this 21-year-old Air National Guardsman from Massachusetts is not a whistleblower, CNN explains, with the help of the many intelligence agency figures it has now hired as analysts. No, he's not a whistleblower. He's a criminal, because he is, unlike the people who run our government, quote, hungry for power. And because this 21-year-old was so hungry for power, federal law enforcement had to swing into action with unfamiliar speed and efficiency and apprehend him. He was that threatening. Now, keep in mind, as of tonight, we still don't know where Jeffrey Epstein got hundreds of millions of dollars. We have no idea, nor do we know what he did for a living. We don't know who left pipe bombs on Capitol Hill on January 6th, 2 of them. We don't know who leaked the Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. We can't even say for certain who killed the president of the United States, because after 60 years, the Biden administration is still hiding thousands of pages of classified documents from the Kennedy assassination.
Wow. That is a lot that he's saying. And it's a lot of truth right here. So I just want you to think about this and let you know how powerful a lot of these things are. That's not a great moment to pause his face. There we go. Now he looks normal. And this is what's important. He said quite a few things I should be actually note taking. And one thing he's talking about is this 21-year-old man. Now, I want you to think about the way that they just portrayed him. And I want you to know the power of perspective. And if you look at things differently, things change. I want you to think about that. You see how on his news station, they're showing it for apparently what it is, and how on CNN, it's obviously the opposite of what you see. Now, from that, it lets you see that on the CNN side, it was completely bashing him, completely making him seem like a criminal. It was making him seem like they say that he's a gun enthusiast, which some reason not supposed to be a slander. There's car enthusiasts, there's boat enthusiasts, there's RC car boat enthusiasts. There's enthusiasts in everything. There's retro enthusiasts. So because he's a gun enthusiast, he's crazy or something. And he's in the military? What? That's normal. What person in the military isn't an enthusiast of a gun in some sort? What? But what I'm saying is the way that they was able to manipulate the way that he was used. A 21-year-old man that was willing to sacrifice his whole livelihood. As in, from this point on, that 21-year-old man took out the initiative and said, I may not be able to work, I may be in prison, I may be in jail, I may even get killed. But this information is so imperative and important for people to know that I'm willing to leak it out. This is just from what I'm seeing. We haven't watched through half of the video yet. But it's just enough for you just to think about, like, man, if that kid, because yes, he's a 21-year-old man, but he's 3 years ago, he was 18. And so just from looking at that alone, it's like, wow. He's willing to sacrifice everything to be able to release something that is very much needed truth. And the only difference between him and you is just really position. Just think about this. If they can manipulate the news to make one person sound terrible, to ruin the whole person's life, basically, probably blacklisted from airlines and everything. Imagine what he can do to the regular person such as yourself. They can do this to people who have power and influence, especially. Imagine what they can do to the average person. The only thing that gives us power and sovereignty is by being us together. As we all done heard before, united we'll stand, divided we'll fall. Don't let it fall because you want to believe in the truth. That isn't truth.
They are hiding more than 1 billion other classified documents. But tonight, we can say for dead certain who embarrassed Toria Nuland and Joe Biden. And that kid is going to jail for a long, long time. That's the standard. The media are fine with that standard. Watch this remarkable exchange on Monday of this week between the White House press corps and Biden flack John Kirby.
Without confirming the validity of the documents, this is information that has no business in the public domain. It has no business, if you don't mind me saying, on the pages of front pages of newspapers or on television. It is not intended for public consumption, and it should not be out there.
Over the past 6 months, we have been investing.
This commercial I'm talking about. Bear with me. By the way, because I've seen this commercial before, he's talking about basically food crisis that's basically happening right now, and it actually isn't new. This is something that's actually right now we're not seeing too much of a hurtness right now because we're going into the summer right now. But I were to bet on this oncoming winter, we're going to be seeing some things that we haven't seen before. And it's not as fear mongering, it's just based off of things that's been happening on up to this point. We didn't have multiple food factories be burnt down, multiple mysteriously have fires, chicken facilities. You remember when egg prices went up? If you're from America, you know what I'm talking about. We done had eggs go from dang only like $2, sometimes even like dang near $1 from $10 a dozen. I didn't even see it, but it was like $12, $13 for a dozen of eggs. Something that a chicken just pops out multiple of a day. Just think about that by itself. It's ridiculous. But it lets you know how dependent we are on the grocery stores. Once upon a time, we didn't have grocery stores. We just had each other, community. We had the local convenience store, as in the mom and pop store. And basically, the mom and pop store is kind of like a bartering place to an extent, as in you can come there, you can trade a little bit of something for this or that. You didn't necessarily even have to pay with money. You can just pay with what you grew in your garden or whatever. And of course, they had whatever they can get from different farmers and people, and they'd sell it like that. But that's all we used to have. We used to preserve our food ourselves. That's why the mother role is super important by itself. It's just simply because without, for example, the mother and doing those type of things as in preserving the food, preparing the food for our family, knowing that exactly what she's cooking is detriment, as in it's a necessity for her family, as in if she don't do it, like it can't be basically done. But it was so many different things, as in preserving our food, keeping our food, just making sure that we can make it. And now we're so dependent, as in we can't oftentimes go a week without a store. As you get a week worth of food, you can even get a month worth of food, but if your refrigerator, your power gets shut down, like not too long ago in Houston, I believe, what was it, 2021, which we had a winter storm. It was on, I knew for sure it was on Valentine's Day, February 14th, that literally that night it froze. And it wasn't no regular freeze, we had ice and snow. And in Texas, we don't get ice and snow combined together and for a long time. If anything, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then it's gone by the time the sun come up. No, it stayed for a week. Like the sun was bright, and one day we didn't have no clouds, and it was 29 degrees, bright and sunny. That's unheard of, like for a while. Once upon a time, Texas used to always have snow, et cetera, here and there. But yeah, that time was pretty brutal. And we had to have help from a lot of foreign entities, from other states, just to help us out in our problems over here because our very decrepit power grid, to say the least. I'm glad that we have independence as in our history, that Texas was its own nation. Well, yeah, it was for a short period of time, of course. I'm proud to be able to have that type of heritage here, but at the same time, because of our unpreparedness and reliability such on government, that it cripples us a lot when it comes towards the basic things, such as power, as in electricity, water, and just the essentials. So all these things, of course, comes back towards what he's talking about right here, as in just our dependency and our trust. My thing is this: we're not, myself especially, I'm not anti-government or anything of that sort. I believe government should have a place, just such as how people should have certain domain towards the government as well. As in the whole point of the Second Amendment is not just the right to bear arms, for an example, it's to be able to keep a tyrannical government in check. So if you look back into the documents towards how it is, Tucker, yeah, does he speak? No, it's Ben Caprio. He speaks about this and other people about this issues as well. But he talks about how that's really what the Second Amendment is built for, to just be able to keep a tyrannical government in check. The government is supposed to have government is supposed to be serving the people, not the other way around. For example, for the last 3 years, that everything that happened with Rona, you know what I mean? Everything that happened with that is you had so many people scared, so many people that was forced to do things that they didn't want to do. And even if they did want to do it, they thought they was doing it for the right reasons. People were doing things because they thought it was right and they were scared. And that's okay that you were scared. But now that you see, if you allow it to be so, because the truth never has to lie. Lies always try to mimic truth, but truth doesn't have to mimic anything. It just comes from truth. And so because of that, from everything that happened, we see a lot of things that we thought were things that they were aren't the way that they really are. I'll leave that where it is. But just for you to hear, he's talking about a 21-year-old man, locked him up. He in prison, basically. That's, federal. That's really what that is for leaking out government documents. But he was willing to do that for you to be able to find out what we're about to find out right now.
So the fact that U.S. soldiers are fighting Russian soldiers in a war in Ukraine has no business in the public domain. The fact that the country we are backing and fighting alongside is losing, not winning, has no business in the public domain. You have no right to know what your government is doing in your name with your tax dollars and with the future of your children and grandchildren. You have no right to know. Shut up and stop asking relevant questions. Okay, said the media. And if you want to get really sick to your stomach, go pull a transcript from the Pentagon briefing today, where news reporters asked Flax from the Pentagon, what are we going to do to keep information like this secret in the future? Not one question about the substance of the information. We're fighting a war against Russia directly? Really? Don't they have the largest nuclear arsenal in the world? Not one question. How can we help you keep it secret? Those were the questions. And not only are the media covering up the substance of the story, which is not who leaked it, but what he leaked, they're covering up the crimes committed to get you this information. The administration apparently used illegal surveillance techniques to identify this kid, apparently with the help of the Washington Post and the New York Times, who are its accomplices. They're not holding government accountable. They're helping government keep you from knowing what government is doing. Today, the Washington Post reported it had exclusively obtained some of the classified documents this leaker possessed. Quote, the Post also reviewed approximately 300 photos of classified documents, most of which have not been made public. Some of the text documents the leaker is said to have written out. So we've got two problems here. If it's illegal to see these documents, if you don't have a security clearance, how is the Washington Post doing this legally? They don't have a security clearance. Well, obviously they were given them by the U.S. intel agencies and are working alongside them. But the bigger problem is this is information that's relevant to the public in a so-called democracy. You can't lie about things that jeopardize our collective future and get away with it. And you certainly shouldn't be doing that with the assistance of the news media. The news media whose job it is to inform you of what your government is doing. But instead, they are working actively late into the night to lie to you on behalf of their masters in permanent Washington. And by the way, just last week, the plan was to lie in an even more grotesque way and blame Russia for this. And we're quoting, Russia or pro-Russian elements are likely behind the leak of several classified U.S. military documents posted on social media that offer a partial month-old snapshot of the war in Ukraine, 3 U.S. officials told Reuters on Friday. Really? Who are these officials who shot of the war in Ukraine 3 U.S. officials told Reuters on Friday. Really? Who are these officials who lied to Reuters? And then Reuters just, of course, obediently reprinted their lies, as they always do. News agencies print what they are told to print by the intel agencies, no matter how ridiculous it is, no matter how.
Well, that isn't new by itself. So one thing that's very imperative based off of what he's speaking about right now is how the news outlets basically are working alongside with intelligence agencies. And that isn't nothing new. And you have to remember, this is Fox News as well. So even though this seems to be on our side, he's giving us some truth. You have to remember that they're in some type of collab as well. So never fully trust into one news station at all, because at the end of the day, all of them are underneath the umbrella. All of them tell the news in similar but different ways, etc. Remember, it's more about division than being united. Of course, he's speaking some truth, and it's very important for you to know. It's very imperative. You have to see towards what they're doing with your money, etc. You literally, now that we see that we literally have troops, which honestly, I already thought that myself based off of how much money we're giving them. I'm just like, if they're giving them machines and all this different stuff to fight them, I would think they probably send some people secretly over there too. Turns out to be true. Wowzers. But that's what it is. And the best thing as in what we can do over here is we have to be not afraid of consequence and be together. And what I mean by that is when you have a nation that's full of fear, you have people who's not willing to stand up. Like for example, as men wise, this the this the lowest testosterone men we've been had, beta, more type of they don't a lot of us don't have fathers. And that's been implemented, I could purposely say, by the government since the 70s, since the war on drugs. And it's so many different things that's being put on separating the mother and father in here in America right now. As in the 80s, 1987, I think it's a documentary that's talking about the fall of the black community, the black family, but it also talks about the white family as well. That was but the main focus was the black family. And at that time, it was already said that over 70% of children that was being born at the time are out of wedlock and were to single mothers. But it wasn't just limited to two, but that was the main focus. So this means, of course, it's happening with white folks. I'm pretty sure it's happening with everybody, other type of ethnics as well, to an extent here in America. And so if that was happening in 1987, imagine how things are now and how much more division it is. Like I said towards the earlier part of the video, this is the most unpatriotic our nation has ever been. And if you know anything about history, to have a strong patriotic people is to have a strong nation. And the less patriotic people are of their own nation, if you have people in their own country saying "F America" and just and saying they're gonna move somewhere else, knowing they ain't gonna really go nowhere because they know they're lazy and all that sort. If you have people being unpatriotic, if you have people not having faith and trust in their own government, if you have the dollar falling in value, having this happening and shooting there's so many different things that's going on. How can you expect a nation to be strong? Everything's built like this on design, by design. And none of this is by accident. And you have to understand this, even by watching him right now. I need you to understand that we are in a time of great transition in history. The last 3 years was like a test demo of what's really to come. I can say that much. And from these last 3 years is definitely something to know, as in you can't trust outside of your group, your people, as in who has best interest. You cannot have people around you who are powered over fear. You need people who's willing to do the out of ordinary to be able to get the extraordinary. Because to be ordinary is to be in a dangerous position. Now, when it comes to different incomes and things of that sort, it's very imperative for you to diversify your incomes, to be able to gain incomes in different ways. Network with people you never networked with before. Gain friends and real community. Social media has us to be the most connected but disconnected at the same time, simply because it's an artificial way of connection. Far too many times are we on the internet conversating with each other. On Instagram, it'd be through text messages, and you don't respond for this amount of time, and all of these different type of things, simply because of how people operate and the games that people play. Life isn't a game, and your life isn't a game. You are the storyteller of your own movie. You are the main character of your own movie, and you decide if you want to truly take over. Decide right now that the life that you want is going to be yours, and that the life that you do not want, reject it. Reject it in its full entirety. And just think to yourself, what do I need to do to be able to change, to be able to progress, to be able to become the better person than who I am today? Because my family, those who depend on me, and I who depend on myself, demand more of myself to become what I need to be as a man, as a woman. Because those are what's really important. Your feelings and things of that sort, they matter to an extent, but when it comes to results, they really don't matter. Matter you mad, happy, depressed, sad, we all have feelings, but you need to direct all your feelings towards being progressive, as in building something that's important to be able to make yourself sovereign, independent, and non-reliant on any man, any woman. Network with people, become great based off those around you by enriching those around you. God blesses you, not just by yourself, and not just for yourself, but for others. And not just towards what it is. That's the universal truth. The more that they can get it divided against each other, the more that they're able to control us. I don't know everything was to come. I don't have a whole bunch of inside information or anything of that sort. But this is just very important to be able to see. Now, from this time frame, we're probably not going to get through the whole video, but we definitely want to watch it a little bit more. And just really from this, of course, I'm going to drop the actual video in the description below, so you can just click on it and watch it for yourself. But I want you, once again, to do what I said earlier, is what's one thing that you learned, what's one thing that you like? And from those two things, that one thing that you learned and one thing that you like, devise to yourself that one thing that I like, why do I like it? How does it agree towards me? And what's the reason I agree with it? And what's the one thing that I learned? And that one thing that you learn, what will you use that information for? Will you just put it in the back of your mind and forget about it and go on your merry way, or are you going to use it to actually improve your life and protect those who matter to you? Or become based off what you need to be from it? Now, because you're on this earth means that you've been selected by God Himself to be here. If you believe it or not, that's not really up for discussion. Truth is truth. It's just what it is. We breathe in there and we breathe it out. You can debate with me that you're not doing it, but in reality, that's what it is. And because you are here with a purpose, you don't have to necessarily know what that purpose is, but know that God has a high purpose for you. And because you have a high purpose, which means that you have to take the initiative in yourself to becoming the best version of yourself. And how you do that? It's by feeding yourself the proper food. It's by feeding the right all food into your body. And what do I mean by all food? I'm talking about food as in thought, food as in what you eat, food as in what you see, food as what you hear. Because all of it is a programming in one way or another. We're going to get programmed. Program yourself in the right way. If you keep on giving your body trash on a food level, your body's going to become trash. There's a reason why you have diabetes, hypertension, cardiac arrest, cardiovascular disease. It's one of the, that's if not the number one cause of death here in America. And you're wondering why, because you keep on eating McDonald's every other day, and you're eating BS and hot Cheetos and Takis. Shout out to the old song though. OGs really know the song. But it's truth and it's reality. And by putting those right foods of thoughts within your mind and your body and your spirit is what's important. How you can do this is not just by starting off with changing your diet. You don't have to change completely, but it's by adding the little things. What's something that you normally don't have? Do you normally eat fruit? If you don't eat fruit, add a fruit that you like and start eating it every other day. Then start adding every day. If you don't go to the gym, start going every other day or do some type of routine which makes you uncomfortable. Especially as a man, it's very, very imperative for you to be putting yourself in uncomfortable positions because men will become valuable as in what we go through and overcome. It's not necessarily the same for women, but what is important as in what we both have to do for ourselves. We both need to eat the proper things. We both need to consume the right things through our eyes and our mind, as in through our ears. It's very important because the programming when it comes to the radio, from what you see on the media, is towards how you're going to think and how you're going to act. When you first get up in the morning, are you just shutting off your alarm and hopping on social media and you're looking at a whole bunch of other people's stories or whatever? All of us done did it before. Some of us still do it time to time. I still do it time to time. But my thing is, the majority of the time I don't. And the reason why I don't is simply because when you put other thoughts in before your own, the thoughts that you have afterwards, are they really your thoughts? Are those really thoughts or are they reactions? Your reactions are a big thing because your emotions is energy in motion. Shout out to, I may not know who he is or not. Later on, you'll probably find out. We'll probably have a video, me and Nicole, talking to each other about whatever that may be. But his name is Nanotaurus. And you can look him up on IG as an at Nanotaurus. My bad. It's Long Live Nano. Long Live Nano. And basically, one thing that he said is how energy works. And how energy works, how he explains it, is that your emotions is energy. So your emotion is energy in motion. That's why it's emotion. It's energy in motion. So whatever feelings that you put into that emotion, you are now putting it out into the physical world. As in, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. This is not up for debate. I'm just telling you the truth based off of what it is. How you feel doesn't really matter at this point. It's just what it is. You are not just human. You're beyond human. This is your body here on earth. You're beyond that. You aren't just here just to be here and to die and to go into nothingness. I don't know what science teacher or whatever tried to tell you otherwise, but all the other mess is BS. This is what it is. You are God's highest form of creation, and that's the truth. I don't care if your mother tell you otherwise or whoever. I'm telling you what it is. And because you have that energy, emotion that goes into motion, whether you're angry, happy, sad, basically what it's saying is whatever that emotion is, you have to put that energy into the right output. So if you get angry, instead of you having a little tantrum or getting depressed, you use that same energy and be like, dang, I don't like this. I won't put this into the gym or whatever and then work out that anger. Push it towards something that's in creating something. We are creating type of beings, we are creative beings. Because we're of God, for an example, I give you a little lesson. Because we're of God, we are have like abilities of Him. So when you hear certain people who know the proper information, they saying like we're gods. In a way, technically we are, but we're not God Himself. So let's elaborate based off of this. As in God, He spoke nothing into something. That's what makes Him Him and only Him, which makes Him supreme. But our like God-like ability powers is like this. And I know this is a big turn towards what we're talking about, but all of it's relevant. We're about to see how it comes back together. But because we're of God, we have His like abilities because we created in His image and form. So because we created in His image and form, we also have domain towards the earth. And because we have domain over the earth, that means we have domain towards any creation. So we can take whatever and turn it into something that's already here. So God's separation towards us, as He can speak nothing into something, we can get something and turn it into something else. But the funny thing is about how powerful God creations are, that even when we create something awful, whatever that it originally was, it returns back into the earth in its form. For example, we can make steel or we can make iron, whatever. We can make that, take the minerals from the earth, extract it, and put it into a simpler form. but eventually over time it's going to go back into the earth. It's just like our bodies. Our bodies come from earth, but eventually, once we pass from our bodies, we separate as in when we have death. Death is nothing more than a transition back into basically the afterlife. And basically, as in that transition, what happens is your body goes back into the earth and the cycle continues. So that's what's pretty awesome about this whole experience. But all this circulating back towards what you see right here, as in him talking about these files being leaked, talking about how we actually have people over there fighting, and all this secretive type of things happening. If this was leaked, and this is just a little information that we do know, imagine on what we don't know. And the fact that Tucker just spoke about how there's information that the news media, we're talking about CNN, other news sources, they went out and they was having an interview about the leaked files. They was talking about how can we prevent this from happening again. How indoctrinated and how blind do you have to be to not see that? Because you have to be a man without eyes nor ears to be able to see, to not be able to see that. And it's pretty sad, but it's the truth. And we're always going to have those who wants to be able to see that, oh no, they can't do this. They wouldn't do that to us. They wouldn't do that. Oh yes, they did this before. They may have did that one time. They may have lied about this. They may have did that, but they wouldn't do it again. They wouldn't mean it. That was just an accident. There's always going to be an excuse. But the thing is, how many times are you going to make an excuse to yourself that you can rely on somebody else other than those around you, the man above, and yourself? Take accountability towards what it is, because it's the truth. And the truth is all we're going to have towards the end of the day. Because if we don't tell the truth and we don't live in truth, that's what God created us to be. What will we become?
How much dignity and self-respect they exchange in return for doing it. So what's happening to the sleeker now is what happens to anyone who contradicts the national security state and their obedient servants in the media. You go to prison so the media can continue to tell you lies. Here's MSNBC, for example, assuring its viewers that everything's just fine.
What the Russians didn't understand was that they were going into the lion's den. That kind of what we would say in the military, this force multiplied, made the Ukrainian army quite literally unbeatable. They are winning. Russia is going to lose this war.
Every last person has said exactly what Malcolm just said. They're going to win this war. It's not a matter of if, but when.
14 months in, they are simultaneously telling you that Ukraine's victory is inevitable, mostly because of the moral power they possess. But at the same time, you need to send tens or hundreds of billions of dollars more in advanced weapons systems to Ukraine to keep them from losing. What will they say now that we know the truth and that we know that they lied to us, not just the U.S. government, but the U.S. news media?
Please, sir, we've done what you told us.
Go away and come back tomorrow. You've had plenty of time already. Yeah. Oh.
Come on, man.
Well, I basically not had enough with that. We didn't been here long enough. But wow, that's definitely something right there to pretty much learn from. As in, once again, like I said, you can click the link below to watch the Undisturbed.
To keep my immune system
But
supported,
the
I take
thing
steps.
is really just for you just to think about how it's impactful. It's simply because this is impactful, because this is just allowing you to realize towards what's really out there and towards what really the truth is. And based off of certain, I want you to understand that there's different levels of information that certain people are only able to allow to be able to know. It's just like how you and your family and how you and your family know certain things because you are inside that family. Nobody outside of your family knows. It's just you and your family. It's just between y'all. It could be a tradition or whatever that it may be, but it's just in your family. It's like a hidden language or anything of that sort, inside jokes or anything like that. So one thing is really just important for you to think about is like, okay, if we have these type of things within our family, how's towards how our government has it? And what can you do to be able to protect yourself and those you care about? Because that's really what's important. There's nobody more important than your family. There's nobody more important than towards how your future is going to be. We do live in uncertain times, but one thing to remember is to not be attached towards this world. To always have peace within your heart and not fear. Fear is a word for lack of faith. It's false evidence appearing real. You can look at it as in something that's just fear, or you can face everything and rise. You may not be able to do everything by yourself, but this is a safe place. You're here for a reason. You're hearing this message for a reason. You're important. You're cared for. You're loved. You're desired, and it's for a reason. I may not know every next step that I'm going to take. Well, I may not know what stairway we're going to lead, but I do know that next step, even though it may seem cloudy, it may be a little dusty, it may need a little cleaning. It's important to dust it off, shine the light, just take that step and take complete and utter faith that it's going to withhold your weight. Because there's multiple reasons towards, as long as you're walking towards what you know is right, that God has your back. As you walk towards him, he walks back towards you. And it's the same thing towards the relationships with each other. It's a lot of things we need to do. It's a lot of things that we should act into doing. We're in a time where we're further away from God and patriotism and family in general. I'm not no super American. I'm not this, I'm not that. But you don't have to be someone who's considered special to be here, a human being who has the capability of rational thought. That's you. Your voice matters, but don't speak from your feelings. Speak from what needs to be done and allow your feelings to put the energy into what needs to be done. What makes you different from the average man, the average woman, is doing what's needed to be done even when you don't feel like it. To do something even if it doesn't have you be seen and or liked in a certain way. If someone likes you or whatever, that's irrelevant towards what's really important. What's more important? You and your future, as in with your family, your friends, or the opinion towards how someone else see you, a certain image you have on social media. You have certain people towards this time before Elon just recently just released a lot of these Instagrams back, such as Trump, Andrew Tate, for example. Wouldn't be surprised if my cousin. Same name, last name. And really just from that, it just really just lets you know though, that if people with power, voices can be suppressed to an extent, you see what they're doing to average Joe. You see what happened to the 21-year-old. What can they do with your family? Technology is a thing now. AI is a real thing. I have firsthand use with it. I've seen what it can do. And a lot of us have as well. And that's the public version. Just imagine that of which is not public. The files that are secret. Terminator stuff starts seeming more real every day now. iRobot. So, like I said, I may not know all my next steps, but I know the next step. And I encourage you, as the young man and young lady you are, to find what you need to do just to be able to get out of the matrix, to be able to separate yourself from the masses. Because you have those who's willing to manipulate images, thoughts, and emotions of other people against you simply for the interest of the higher power and not the higher power. And that's a problem. It's important for you to become competent within speech, something I've been working on. Competent within skills, competent with social skills, competent with something that cannot be taken away from you. And truly being connected as in it was back in the 50s and 60s, as in kids when they're growing up on the street, not on the street, but in the neighborhood. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was raising each other to an extent. Everybody knew of everyone. For example, my grandparents in the neighborhood that they were, my grandmother was the first Black person to be in the neighborhood that was full of whites. And of course, all of the whites moved the moment she moved in. And now it's predominantly Black and Hispanic. And in that neighborhood, as our closing statement, they had children, multiple children, all within the neighborhood, from all hardworking people, people who worked on the railroad, post office, and just big major type of hand-related type of jobs, as skill-related jobs. And it was a strong community. Everybody knew each other. All the parents knew each other, all the kids knew each other, all of them played on the street with each other. All of them to this day still talk to each other to a certain extent. It's important for us to have a relationship as close as that now. It's quite unfortunate for us to be connected on social media, but not actually be connected in reality. How many times are we going to watch someone else live their story while we continue to sit back on the back burner of ours? We are truly the main character of our own movie. Don't sit back and be a background character. That's not what you built to be. You had like a 1 in a million chance of being born. You think that was an accident? You may have been born an accident that appears to be that way. Your parents may not even have planned you. Heck, some of y'all was probably like that was going to be aborted. But guess what? You're here. It's not by an accident. You have purpose, and you're here for a reason. You defied the odds. You're literally a winner when you was born. You defied the odds by being alive. That is against the narrative, if you know what I'm talking about. Your life is important. You are important. You are needed. You are desired. And I'll say this. Warriors themselves are not born. They are forged. You're not born a warrior. You're not born strong. You don't have to be strong when you start. But you have to start to be strong. And that's just what it is. So from that, if you enjoyed this video, of course, you can drop a like, a comment, definitely help the channel out. We definitely building slowly but surely. That's very important. But most importantly, more than that, I just want people to be able to come together and see what's possible. The biggest thing that you can do for you, the biggest thing you can do for yourself is show up for yourself. You may not have people showing up for you in your life. You probably don't have people showing up for you now. You may think that you're invisible. You may think that you don't have much purpose. But the fact that you're here right now is more evidence to me that you are here for greatness. You being here right now is greatness. You are one of the most important things in this world, as far as anyone else knows. So treat others as you want to be treated yourself. Treat them as they are the most important, because as far as you know, they are. You never know the last time they may be here. And the same thing for yourself. It's truly a blessing to be here. And I'm grateful, and so should you be. So from that, this is That Is on Billion. I appreciate everyone being here. I look forward to seeing everyone on the next video. And again, see you.